There's a serious epidemic going on right now in this country, unlike we've ever seen before. Child abduction for satanic ritual abuse in this country is so out of control that we're losing 200 children an hour. Think about that. 200 children an hour. That's roughly 1.8 million children a year. It is so out of control that 474 people in February alone were arrested in California. I want you to do a search on this right now. Type in Pizzagate, California, 474 arrested. You will see a video there once you click on the link. You will see a deputy sheriff and the LA Task Force unit giving a report about the arrest being made. Also, on Super Bowl weekend, arrests were made in 14 other states for sex crimes and child abductions. I was so disturbed by this, I asked myself, why isn't this being reported? These are serious, evil, heinous crimes, and nobody's going to report it, so I decided to continue investigating. It turns out that CNN, ABC, NBC, Fox News, CBS, all the networks nationwide are being run by the Illuminati. You can say whatever you want about President Trump, but he is arguably 100% correct. Mainstream media and the press do not have the personal interest of the American people. They have their own agenda, the Luciferian agenda. When he said Washington, D.C. and America is a mess, he was not kidding. People want to get angry at him about the immigration ban. If I was currently president, I wouldn't let anybody come into our country right now. No one. How could I even in good faith welcome people into our country when our house isn't cleaned? How could I even fathom the idea of letting immigrants into our own country when it's not safe? When he says there's really bad people in our country, he's not only talking about radical Islamic terror, he's talking about the Luciferians. The Luciferian agenda is so out of control that there's currently 75,000, I repeat, 75,000 covens in the United States. There's 33,000 major cities in the U.S. That equals 2 covens in every major city. Now we have 2 agendas against us. Radical Islamic terror and a Luciferian agenda as well. Do you feel betrayed by mainstream media? I sure to hell do. We're not even talking about illegal aliens or ISIS or Islamic terror. We're talking about our own children, our own flesh and blood. We're going to have to turn to independent news networks and do our own private investigations. I thank God I was able to find this information online. We're not talking about race or anything else. We're talking about our very own children, innocent children. My God, 200 children an hour. So I continued to do more research, and I started looking for, the hot spots, the troubled areas in our country. And what I found was 2 major interstate expressways, I-95 and Interstate 10. I don't live in those areas, but I decided to look them up anyway, just to give you the information in case you live in those areas. I guess Interstate 95 runs north and south. It starts approximately at Washington, D.C., and runs down the east coast of our country, all the way down to Florida. Interstate 10, that starts in Texas, runs right on the border of Mexico, all the way to California. Now it makes sense that our president wants to build a wall. They were saying young girls are the primary target between the ages of 12 and 14. Girls between the ages of 12 and 14 are more of a hotter commodity because you can use them over and over again. Unlike cocaine and heroin, I guess they keep them in cages too, and I guess they torture the hell out of them, that when you torture somebody, the mind begins to open and they can reprogram them. The Luciferians have it all mapped out. They take the children back to the coven. I guess the boys, or some of them, stay on guard to make sure no authorities are coming. Then some of the children are used for sex rituals. The other victims are used for human sacrifice. From what I was reading, they will torture these kids for days to get their adrenaline going, and the brain releases some chemicals. Then the chemicals travel to the bloodstream. Then, unfortunately, the child is murdered. Some of the rituals, what they do with the body, is just way too graphic to mention. Through my investigation, I was reading other articles where some cults go after orphans. Some of the cults look into foster care. This investigation had me up all night. I could not stop thinking about it. It was so disturbing. They were suggesting that you go to some satanic websites. They have the rituals all mapped out for the year. Certain months are for animal sacrifices. Other months are for human sacrifices. I guess it just depends on the time of the year. As As if the shock wasn't enough for me, I wanted to see how we compare to other countries. The United States of America is ranked number 5 in the world for sex crimes. Can you believe that? We definitely have to interact with our children a lot more. As you well know, it can happen anywhere. Schools, youth centers, churches, there's no surprise there, or even at the grocery store. If you were given a classroom full of 30 kids, at least one child would be a victim of satanic ritual abuse, and another child that is sexually abused. And the previous administration spent 300 times more on the war on drugs than human trafficking and child abduction. I think we can learn more from kids than we can learn from ourselves, actually. They don't see skin color as a problem. They don't see religious beliefs as a problem. There's this outreach program called High Five, and police officers come into schools and visit with children, and they talk about things. When the police officer is done talking to the classmates, police officer asked the kids all for a high five, and I guess some of the parents had a problem with that. They were complaining because the kids feared the police officer would take their parents away. We need to stop fear-mongering our children with authority. Children do not make that stuff up on their own. We need to start reaching out to the authorities in our community, especially police officers. They are actually protecting our children. As adults, if we reach out to them and show respect and obey the laws of the land, I know they would make exceptions to illegal immigrants and help them become citizens legally. I know they would, but we have to show the respect first. As a concerned parent, I encourage you to do some research on your own. I'm going to give you some information, so please take some notes. Make sure your child stays away from a website called Backpage.com. Type in, for all intents and purposes, human trafficking. The next one, my favorite spirit, Eleanor. Brief foray into voodoo. Steve Webb, federal whistleblower, 32 years. Taylor's bloody underwear. Bohemian Grove, 200 years. Outreach director for SNAP. I can't encourage you enough to do some investigating for yourself. We need to communicate with our children more. This is a very, very serious epidemic that's going on, and nobody's reporting it. The Luciferian agenda is so bad right now, it's the worst it's ever been, and no country will survive if we're this badly divided. If we can't take some action and stand up for our children, then we can't take any action for anything.